Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Excited to have you with us and excited to introduce my guest today, Karen Pelot. She is the owner and principal of Perspectives LLC, an organization that serves leaders and organizations providing executive coaching, leadership development, facilitation, and speaking services. She's all about strengthening leadership, aligning teams, and achieving lasting results through her company and the work that she does. So, Karen, welcome. Great to have you.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. It's great to see you again. We've had good conversations over the years and actually spoke, about, I'd say, oh goodness, probably 6 years ago now. We did a interview like this. So it's good to reconnect and do a
Yeah.
new one.
It was definitely like pre-COVID. So it's been a minute.
It's been
Yeah.
a minute, lots changed. We were talking about that offline before we started. Lots of changes, lots of good things happening. But I really wanted to talk with you today based on your many years of experience as you've coached a lot of leaders and teams and organizations to talk about this idea of leadership pitfalls to look out for. And so I've got a list. It's an ambitious list to see if we can get through it. We're going to do as many as we can. But before we jump in, just tell us a little bit about you, your background, how you got to where you are and what you really enjoy most about helping leaders and teams.
All right. Well, I started. So this is like I used to have an employee that I would say, "Hey, how'd that meeting go?" And he'd go, "Well, I was born in Louisiana." That's how I feel right now. Like let me
Yeah,
try to
you can condense
narrow it
it.
down.
You can really condense. Yeah.
So I had a like 15-year corporate America background, which is where I cut my teeth in leadership and learned so much about human behaviors, et cetera. And then, gosh, it's been now 14 years ago. I jumped without a parachute and started Perspectives. We started as a mediation firm and kind of naturally, organically grew into a leadership development coaching and consulting firm that I have today. So we work a lot with historically government, federal and local agencies, corporate and nonprofit centers. A lot of one-on-one coaching. And my favorite is leadership team coaching because then we're working enterprise wide, helping have greater influence. Um, and sometimes we still do conflict resolution, but only with clients that we're already working with. And what do I love most about it? So many things. I love in the moment seeing like the aha moment happen, either one on
Yeah.
one or with a team. Did all of a sudden something hits in a different way.
Hmm.
And there's this just new awareness and this new understanding about we can do better and we can do better like this. Um, the second thing I love is hearing back. So
Mm.
maybe I worked with you for 6 months, 9 months, a year, and then I keep in touch with everybody, and often they become clients again, or at least just as needed.
Yeah.
And but getting that call that says, you're the first person I thought of. I've got to tell you this, and hearing some phenomenal result that's happened that they are correlating directly to our time
Mm.
together. Like that
Yeah.
is my greatest joy as
Oh,
a
yeah.
coach. Yeah.
That's got to be so fulfilling and
Oh, it's
rewarding.
so rewarding.
Because
Yeah.
y-
And I'm so proud. I'm like a
yeah.
proud mom. Like the birdie flew and look how great they did, you know?
Mm.
So
That's 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 awesome. Yeah, and you're like, oh wait, they listened to what I said and they implemented it.
they internalize the things that we worked on together. And
Mm.
like a year, 18 months, 5 years later, I just had a call 2 weeks ago. Haven't talked to you in 3 years and said,
Wow.
I still have this on my computer and this happened today and I just needed to tell you. So
Oh man.
I love it so much.
That is no, that is awesome. I can see where that would be again, rewarding, fulfilling, gratifying. And yeah, your point about them seeing, kind of having those aha moments and recognizing, hey, we need to change and do some things differently, and they're getting it. It's just it's a neat experience because
Really is.
you see these breakthroughs that are going
It
to
really
happen.
is.
So
Yeah, I have one more thing
yeah.
that I adore about my vantage point
Hmm.
because I come in as the outsider and I get to learn a new language and something new every time I go in with a new company, right? So
Hmm.
they're the expert on what they do. I'm the expert on what I do. But
Hmm.
through our time together, I get to learn things that I would never otherwise have been exposed to, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
Because I
Oh
don't
yeah.
work at that kind of
Yeah.
company and it's
Right.
not what I do, for a living. So that's super fun. That keeps me really excited too, because I'm always, oh my gosh, did you all know that there's this department in the Department of Interior that they keep the fish in all of our lakes safe and this is how they do it, So,
Oh,
stuff like that.
that's fun. I
It's
love
super
it.
fun. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, let me flip that. And I actually didn't even give you this question. So sorry, but
That's okay.
it connects to what we're going to talk about. And I guess I'm wondering from your vantage point, as you said, like, hey, I'm coming in and helping these teams and leaders and love when they get it and love when they adopt it. On the flip side, what are the things you're seeing and have seen over the years that cause those leaders and teams to not get it, to not say, yeah, we need to make change and to implement that change? What's standing in the way?
So there are a couple of things. One, which is probably the most common, is if the person at the top
Yep.
isn't rowing in the same direction,
Hmm.
which is why several years ago I stopped working with middle managers
Okay.
and below because they were ending their time with me almost more frustrated because they didn't have the power and authority to really help. They could, in their own little bubble with their team, communicate the way they wanted to, but they had no authority, accountability for the bigger picture. And so they were bumping up against somebody that wasn't, or a team of senior leaders that weren't singing out of that same hymn book, And so there's that. That's a really
Yes.
common one. The
Yes.
second would be even when the top realm is at least ostensibly is that a word? Ostensibly
Yeah.
in the boat, attending the meetings, participating.
Hmm.
But if they're walking out and not following through and not walking the talk, it crushes everything. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's their own ego or their own pride. A lot of times when we become leaders, we think we've arrived and we know it all and we don't need to listen to anybody else anymore. And that can be a real barrier to that individual growing and evolving, as well as the people around them, and
Mm.
below them. So
Mm.
if I come in to work with a senior leadership team and they're all there, and that the one who's actually the CEO or the executive vice president of that group or whatever it is, um, if they're not learning and growing and walking the talk along with their team,
Mm.
it's not gonna
Not gonna
not
happen.
gonna go.
Yep.
The people that work with me, they'll still retain, and whether they move on and bosses change, things change. So they're growing, but it's frustrating for them because ultimately, again, maybe their division is doing amazing, but that top line culture, when he or she gets in front of their team, it sort of blows it up, you
Yep.
know?
Oh my
So,
goodness. You're spot on. Yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying. It all reminds me of that Maxwell quote that's, been said so many times, everything rises and falls on leadership. I mean, but
totally.
it's so true. Because you're
It's
right. Like,
just true.
man, like I could be in my bubble trying to make all this change and we're doing great things, but then above me, it's not happening. And you can only go so far. And the level of discouragement and frustration that can cause just can become demoralizing in some cases.
It can, and it takes a really maybe stubborn, or persistent, tenacious middle manager or leader to, I'll say, protect
Yeah.
their team
Yeah. Right.
from that. Um, I actually did that successfully one time where
Oh.
there was just turmoil and chaos and really ugly above me, but I didn't share any of that with my
Mm,
team.
mm,
Now, I ended up leaving, jumped to another company eventually. And my team members, many of them who'd worked for me for, gosh, 4 or 5 years when I left, were calling me going, "What happened? You left, and now there's all this chaos. And, the top leader is like apparently lost her mind and blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. No, that's not new. I just shielded
oh.
you from it,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was the only way for my
Yeah.
team to stay
Mm,
functional. And I think a lot of leaders in that position, it's easier for me in that position, I think, to be sharing my frustrations with my team and talking about where I
hmm.
don't agree with things and sharing my dissension and opinions, and
Yeah.
and then that breeds that for them. They take on
Yeah.
that feeling as well. And then they can't be as good as they can be
Right.
if I give them that,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know? So it takes a lot to
It
not
does.
overshare your
Right.
feelings and opinions on things.
Yeah. No, you're right. A lot of discernment there, I think, for you to say, hey, there's really not much upside for me to do this, but there's a lot of downside.
There's no value in it. I
Uh,
had to learn that the hard way though, Jeremy. In my very first, I was a team leader. In my very first job, I fell right into the pattern of oversharing
mm,
and talking too much about my opinions and what I saw and what I thought and where I disagreed. And a year in, I'm giving my star employee, absolute star employee, her performance evaluation. It was a high exceeds rating. She got a great raise. It was phenomenal. And she burst into tears. And I was like, "What is wrong? Like, what's going on? You should be so happy." And she's like, "You've undermined and named, the bosses up the
hmm.
chain of command. And that makes me so uncomfortable that I don't even know if I can work here."
Wow. Wow. Man. Yeah.
That was the biggest ice bucket over my head moment that I have carried for
Ooh.
25 years,
Wow.
that I have carried with me forever. Like I was stunned. I thought I was bonding with them. I thought
Yeah.
I was, building
Yeah.
loyalty and,
Mm,
in a distorted way, I was. But look at how that was impacting my star employee. And I have credited her many times over the years with teaching me that lesson in an instant. She ended
yeah.
up following me from that job to another job to another job.
Oh, wow.
So we had a long, happy career together. But yeah, that was the like one of the personal pivotal
Mm,
moments for me.
wow. Great, great lesson to share. Thank you for sharing and for you to be willing to learn from it, I think says a lot though, because that's what we're getting ready to talk about it, which we haven't even started, is the pitfalls of leadership. But we kind of have. We've touched on a few already. But what a great lesson. Wow. Well, let's dive into some of these again. We have a list. We may not get through all of them, and I know there's a couple we really want to talk about. But this idea of pitfalls is what do leaders need to be looking out for that they may not be paying attention to that could cause their team or their organization to derail, for their leadership to become ineffective. And some of these are behavioral issues, some of these are character issues.
Yeah.
So let's just start with the first one is trust. We talk about trust being so foundational on a team. And I think even your story there that you just shared alludes to a level of trust. There's trust that's like, hey, I can trust you to do your job. And there's also trust like, do I trust you to be open with you, to be vulnerable, to build that relational trust? So there's a couple different angles of it, but just overall, why is trust so important? And a pitfall is obviously not having trust. And so how talk about that from your experience on how leaders might get to that point of losing trust with their team.
So what is it? What is that old saying? Something along the lines of trust is built
Yeah.
over a lifetime and lost in a moment, you
Yeah.
know? And
Right.
it's so true on so many different levels. And what you said, I think, I think for me is in not just for me, read any leadership book out there, go listen to John Maxwell, whoever. Trust is the absolute non-negotiable foundation, right? For longevity, ongoing success, continued success, and consistent success, right?
Hmm.
Anyone can get short-term success being a tyrant or being untrustworthy. And untrustworthy is such a big word. You hit on it. Trustworthy encompasses, can I trust you with the big things?
Hmm.
And can I trust you with the small things, right? Like, I have already been upset with myself today because I showed up a minute and a half late to you today. And that's one of those things, like the little things is doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And so often we humans, especially leaders, because we start to think, and it's so bad, but we start to think my time is so valuable. My time is more valuable than yours, whether we say it consciously or just subconsciously. But when we blow off a meeting, show up late to a meeting, we're sending this message that my time is more valuable to yours. And for the other person, they can't trust that you value them.
Mm.
Right? So that's just
Mm.
one little example of
Mm.
where we can break trust down so quickly in things that we think are inconsequential. And so that's not the big character building, you
Hmm.
lied,
Yeah. Right.
or did something, dishonest. Those are obvious trust killers.
Right.
We all know that people still do them, but those are the big obvious.
Mm.
But I think that trust is built in our little daily habits,
Yeah.
how we show up day in and day out, how we communicate or don't, um, what we do when people are watching and we're on the podium, and what we do when we think nobody is.
Mm.
But without it, no leader is going to be long term
Yeah.
successful with a team. Their peers have to trust them, their boss has to trust them, their stakeholders, which can be a really broad net depending on, what you do. But that trust is an absolute must. And it's not as simple as, but I told the truth.
Hmm.
It's not that simple.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of layers to it, but like you said, without it, you you just can't lead. No one's,
You can't, not long
no
term.
one's gonna
I mean, we
follow.
see
Yeah.
it all the time. There's lots of examples in the world
Hmm.
where people's character is either known or perceived to be,
Yeah. Right.
unscrupulous. There's a lot of examples out there that on some level they appear to be very successful, but long term, imagine the turmoil in those lives too. But, long term,
Yeah.
no team is going to be successful if that leader has not built trust. There's going
Yep.
to be crazy turnover. There's going to be, and we do see that with people who are more well known. We see the level of churn and turnover and replacing people
Hmm.
when there's not that foundation of trust.
For sure. So uh, we're going to touch on a few of these pitfalls that I think relate to trust. And, I was just thinking here as you're talking, like leaders can do some just very tangible things and how they behave and how they present themselves to their team that will build trust. For example, I was just thinking, like you mentioned, talking about a little bit of pride, ego. Sometimes leaders have to, think they have all the answers. That's one of the pitfalls we're going to talk about. But like when a leader's just willing to say, "Hey, I don't have all the answers." When a leader is willing to say, "Hey, I made a mistake," where a certain leader might think, "Oh, that's showing weakness. I'm not in control." But then in reality, it's actually building trust. Like because the team says, "Man, they're willing to put themselves out there," and I think there's still a school of thought out there is like, yeah, no, you can't ever be that vulnerable with your team. What do you think about that?
Can't be that vulnerable. I think that's still more common. If we did like odds,
Yeah.
60% still present that
Well,
way.
okay.
Those are the leaders that take the credit when the team does well. I'm
Yeah.
such a great leader. I did, and
Yeah.
is the first to point the blame back at their teammates when something
Wow.
doesn't go well, that
Wow.
they screwed up, that they did this, that they did that. So those are those same leaders.
Hmm.
But the leader, the the I don't want to say truth. I'm trying not to say truth. But the truth is when you have a shortfall as a leader,
Mhm.
right? There's an area that I'm not the smartest in, which hopefully you're not. That's why you've got this brilliant team, right?
Right.
You're not there anymore to be the smartest one in the room on every topic, right? But if you still feel like I have to be the expert and I have to be the one with all the answers, your team members know you don't.
Right.
They 100% know
Yeah.
that you're just parroting up what you're hearing from me. You know,
Mm.
they 100% know that they're the ones that have your back, filling the gaps and doing these things. So when you purport, even to them, and many leaders will, that I'm the one, that you've got to rely on, they know that's not correct.
Hmm.
So it surely breaks down their trust in you. Because if you're willing to take credit for or have to be the one that had the best idea, even when it wasn't yours, completely
Yeah.
undermines your credibility and trust with the
Yeah.
team. But on the flip side, when you're able to say, you know what, I can't take the credit for this because Jeremy on my
Yeah.
team is really my expert here, and this is him. Wow, what does that do for Jeremy on your team? You
Yeah.
know? And when you can say, I don't know, I don't have the answer to that, but A, let me go try to find out and come back to you, or B, let's figure it out. Or
Hmm.
you want to go do some research on that and let's see if we can come up with an answer on that. That's just being honest, and it is definitely building credibility for
Hmm.
you. And you're putting into that trust account because you are being vulnerable,
Yep.
yeah, but just being honest, right? There's
Honest. Yep.
like, I actually just did a little video a few days ago
Hmm.
that there's just never a good reason to spin facts or be
Hmm.
dishonest
Mm.
or
Yeah.
hedge, right? There's just
Yeah.
never a good reason. And when you do it, you might convince someone in the moment, but people around you know.
Yeah.
They see what you're doing, they know what you're doing, and now at least a big yellow caution flag has gone up.
For sure. People, I think more and more want authenticity and people to be real. Um, so yeah, your point is well taken. And I was thinking to your comment about blame, credit, not to overquote Maxwell. I'm going to give him another credit here for a quote, but and I'll just paraphrase it. It's basically like a leader is a person who takes a little less um, of his share of the credit and a little more
Of the blame.
of the blame, even when they could take more credit and
Mhm.
take less blame. They flip those because just to your point of being a leader, it's like, hey, no, I'm going to deflect credit to the team. I'm going to take blame, even if I'm not directly responsible. But at the end of the day, I'm the leader
At the
and I'm
end of
going
the
to own it.
day, it is how I'm evaluated,
Yeah.
the performance of my
Yep.
team, you know?
Yep.
But at
Yep.
the end of the day, I am responsible. Oh,
Yep.
I was thinking about something as you were talking there too, that about the taking less credit
And more blame.
and and more blame. But I don't know. I lost me. Maybe it'll come back. But
Oh, yeah. If it comes back, just pop
I'll
in.
say I remember.
I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah. Well, it's so true though, and it makes me think of a recent coach in his press conference uh, after they actually I feel like they won the game, but he was basically saying, "Hey, we won, but man, you know what? I did a poor job in the second half of how I called plays and how I set us up. Like it was just so interesting to
Like
me to."
they won despite me almost. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was he was just recognizing that, hey, I didn't do a great job. Like I just appreciated his authenticity. Like he was being
Yeah.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
So
You
um
know, as leaders, the one thing that I think we can unabashedly take credit for, if we're the one who did it, was being smart enough to put that person in their role.
yeah, right.
That I made a really
Good
good
choice.
decision in hiring that person. But if you didn't make that
Absolutely.
decision, if you inherited them, then you don't get to take credit for that either, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's right.
outside that,
That's right.
the team that's doing the doing, you know? So,
Yes. Oh, that's so good. Wow. Well, let's go. I think we spent a lot of time on trust. We've touched on a couple of other pitfalls, but really the big one is just not, not building trust, doing things that degrade trust to, that can be so detrimental to leaders. We're going to jump around here for the sake of time, but I wanted to ask you about communication
mm,
real quick, and then we'll get to a couple others. But because I know you've done a lot in that space, but one of the areas where I see leaders failing in communication is not necessarily the manner in which they communicate, because there is, again, there's different sides to each of these, like how you actually communicate someone. Like, are you communicating in a kind, positive way?
right.
There's that side, but then there's just the actual act of communicating. Like, what's going on in the organization? How are we doing? What are our priorities? What are some updates? Like, I feel like there are some leaders out there who, for some reason, don't feel like they need to communicate consistently with their team just on what's going on. Have you seen that in your experience where they just don't communicate? It's not that they're communicating poorly, they're just not communicating.
It's just
It dri
radio
it, dri
silence.
it drives me a little crazy, I'm gonna be honest.
It does, no, and it should, because that's when I mean things go really haywire when teams are left to figure it out themselves. Because it's human
Yeah.
nature to make like negative assumptions about
Right.
what's going on.
What? Yep.
Unfortunately, but it is. And so when a leader isn't communicating regularly, then it's just like gossip, like
Fill
just
in the
trying to
blanks, right?
figure it out amongst themselves. And then whatever they figure out becomes their reality, whether it is or isn't true. But, communication is the biggest umbrella, and it is the link to trust. So you have,
Yes.
and communication, we all know, is verbal, it's nonverbal, it's written. Your silence says a lot, often more than when you speak, you know?
Hmm.
So communication is such a big umbrella. We could literally talk all day about it. But fundamentally, if you are clear with the team and every individual on it in their individual roles about their role, its connection to the bigger picture, their expectations, how they're doing, touch points along the way. If you have those things crystal clear, follow up on them, you know,
Hmm.
that's like number one because you're not communicating clearly if I don't have clarity on what it's going to take for me to be successful this year and how
Yeah.
my success connects to the bigger picture. That's
Yeah.
critical, right? That's
It's
like
huge.
101. Get that
Yeah.
right. Get that right every time. No one should learn at their annual appraisal how they did.
Hmm.
They should walk in to their annual appraisal already knowing what their score is going to be. They may not know what their exact,
Yeah.
raise and all the
Right.
information you're going to use in it, but 100% whether they met it or didn't meet it, or they exceeded it or they didn't exceed it, they should know that walking in because you've been communicating with them the whole way around.
Yep.
I hate to pick on our government, but last year I had multiple agencies as clients in the first quarter of last year. Um, and I stay close to them. I don't have any contracts at this point. They were quickly eliminated in March of last year, but
Mm.
side by side. But I keep in touch, and for the teams, the leaders leading teams that were not didn't feel like they were getting real-time information because things still change very, very quickly, especially at that time period, like every day. They felt like they were learning things on the news or on
Yeah.
what used to be Twitter, on X, instead of through their chain of command. And it created incredible bad feelings. And talk about mistrust because they felt like there was information that if they had it, they could at least begin to planning how to deal with it, you know? Now,
Hmm.
in some cases, there just wasn't information, but their more senior leaders weren't telling them. There's just not information. So it felt
Mm.
like information was being withheld, even though there just wasn't information to give.
Mm.
So that that
Mm.
that failing to sometimes you don't have an answer
Yep.
or you don't have new information, but when things are in flux and when things are going through change, you've got to just say, I know you've probably got some concerns and some fears, but I don't have any new information right now. And as soon as I do, we'll talk about it. And then
Hmm.
next week and the week after, I still don't have any information. As soon as I do, I'm going to talk to you about it. But you just got to keep that level of
Yeah.
connection in
Yep.
order to maintain the trust.
100%. Just let people know what you don't
Just let
know.
them know.
At least doing that shows that you it's a to me it's a thing, an act of consideration. I'm considering the fact that you are probably wondering about some things, so I'm going to let you know. Here's some updates. Here's what I know, as opposed to just not saying anything
Right.
and letting everyone create their own narrative. And like you said, then now
It's
I
really bad.
I don't trust you. I have
I don't trust you. I don't
frustration.
trust the people above you. I don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
all it would take is just a little bit of effort to say, hey, here's
It's simple, but for some,
yeah,
then it can be difficult.
I know.
It takes, you've heard the study, Daniel Goleman studies, and many, many since Daniel Goleman, that, emotional intelligence equates for 90% of
Mm,
our success and a leader's success. And in this topic that we're talking about, it's critical because the leader has to consider what might they be thinking,
mm,
what might they be feeling, and how can I show up for them and be who they need me to be right now,
hmm.
you
Yep,
know?
absolutely. So true. Okay, let's keep going with a couple more. We're going to group these there's two that I'm going to group together for the sake of time, and we'll see if we may be able to get one more in. We knew this would happen. I gave you a long list. It was ambitious. I told you it was probably overly ambitious.
I know I told you every single one of these could be a topic of their own. Yeah. And they all
I
like
know.
are kind of married.
They
Yeah.
are. They are. Well, let's talk about this pitfall again. Really, two that are related. Again, we could break them out, but let's just group them, and you can take it where you want. And that is ignoring feedback.
Yeah.
And then the second part would be not handling criticism very well.
Yeah.
Talk to me about those.
Yeah. I love this topic and it is a very common topic in
Mm,
coaching and one-on-one
mm,
leadership
yeah.
coaching and with the whole team. Um, we touched on that leader that already thinks they know it all and have all the
Yep.
answers. So even if they show up to something, they're not really there, they're not really present,
Hmm.
and they're ignoring it. So that individual who just flat out disregards feedback, wow, are they missing the boat? First, on so many levels. Number one, they're demonstrating to the people offering them feedback that they don't value them,
Mm,
that they're not important enough to care about what they think. What's that do to trust? So there's that. And then if I'm your boss and I'm giving you feedback and you're ignoring it, what's that do to my perspective of you? Right? So ignoring feedback is a lose-lose every day of the week.
yeah.
Like you're hurting your organization because you're not taking things into consideration and learning and growing from them the way you need to be doing. And doesn't matter if you are the owner, the CEO, or the brand new team leader, you still need to be growing and learning and
Hmm.
evolving. You know, things
Yep.
are not static. If you are, that train's leaving you. You're gonna get left behind. So never, never, never can we ignore feedback. But having said that, we don't have to take all feedback personally either.
Mm,
And we don't have to take it to heart and stew over it. And we don't have to make some kind of immediate change just because we got some piece of feedback. So, and this is where um, leadership maturity and discernment becomes important,
mm.
right? Because everybody's got an opinion, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
feedback, right? If you really think about what does feedback mean, it's somebody giving you information about something about you, right?
Yeah.
And that can come from the person you just cut off at an intersection, or it can come from your boss or a team member or a peer or a stakeholder of another sort. So I think when we get feedback, number one, we need to seek it out because it is so critical to our success to keep us in check, make sure we're going in the right direction and on point. So feedback is incredibly important. We need to be seeking it out, number one. Number two, feedback, we need to have discernment about who it's coming from, what their credibility on that subject matter is, um, and really decide, is this something that is true, it's happening right now, or is it some projection about something that could go a million different directions? So we
Mm,
just got to be able to assess, is this real? Is it something that's happening now? Is it something that is coming from somebody that I trust, that I think is credible to give me this information? Number one. And if it's not, there is a lot of feedback that we get that can
yeah.
can roll off our shoulder that we
Right.
just don't need to internalize. And there's
Yeah.
also there's also this internal dialogue that's always going on. So sometimes we think we're getting feedback that we're not really even getting. No one's giving us, right? We've
Mm,
got this story in our head that we're being judged, that look on her face or the way he said that or whatever it could be that is
mm,
out of our control, and it's not at a time where we have requested feedback or somebody has said, let me give you some feedback, you know?
Yeah.
But we're making assumptions because of other dynamics in the room, and those can drive us crazy. I literally,
Mm.
I mentioned this to you earlier, Jeremy. I just had a client conversation last week where she's new. She's a new client for me, and she is like paralyzed by
Mm.
this fear of being judged and being judged harshly in the workplace. She always thinks colleagues in the industry, her team members, her peers are harshly judging her and she's not good enough. And the truth is, she had a 360 leadership assessment done that she invited people from all of these groups to participate in. And she's incredibly well thought of, you know, but
Mm.
she's wigging herself out because she's internalizing all of these cues that she's picking up from people that don't have anything to do with her.
Mm.
So,
That's tough.
feedback is
Yeah.
critical. We need to assess it. If it is if it is coming from a valued, trusted, credible source, we need to accept that feedback as valuable. Then decide
Mm.
what will we do with it, right? But it's valid. It's valid feedback, whether we agree with it or not. We need to consider it valid. If it's coming from a source that doesn't have the expertise, isn't in the arena, is just throwing a opinion out there, you know, we can probably just let that go and not let
Yeah.
it eat at us that somebody,
Yeah.
gave us some negative feedback on something. But feedback
Yeah.
is valuable.
Yeah.
We just have to be able to discern when to change a behavior or take different action because of that feedback and when to let it go.
Yeah. It makes total sense in my head, and I
It's
agree
hard
with
to
you.
do.
Right. Like there is that emotional side of it where you said it a couple of times, talking about internalizing, and now in that example, maybe I'm observing things
Right.
and now I'm taking those on, and there's various reasons for that, I'm sure. But like when I think about just our culture today,
Yeah.
and
We're so quick to judge and be
I mean the
harsh.
critic, yeah, I'll look at a story online that will be a great story, like one of those warm, like, positive stories, and I'll just look at the comments. Inevitably,
It's
somebody's
crazy.
in there bashing and criticizing, and I'm going, how can you criticize this? So the criticism is just rampant around us no matter what you do. Somebody's not going to be happy. Someone's going to
Always going to be a hater.
criticize you. And for leaders, um, it is hard. You're just going to be criticized. And I know for me, over the years, it was an area of struggle for me. I would internalize it, and
Yeah.
I would take it on, and I think where I regret some of the ways I handled criticism was in how I reacted to it.
Mm-hmm.
It may cause
Yeah.
me to do or say things that
Hmm.
I
If you had
should
a
have.
do-over, you would do differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's totally logical, right?
Yeah.
Let it roll off. Oh yeah, but man, it's not always easy, is it?
It's not. But we can train ourselves to start receiving feedback
Hmm.
as data, just as data
Hmm. It's data.
instead of something personal, even when somebody might be intending it to be personal, right? Trying to get your goat or just intentionally being harshly critical, if we can train ourselves to receive it as data, takes practice. It's an
Hmm.
ongoing practice,
Yeah.
but it really reframes what we do and how we react internally and with the other person interpersonally. When we can just go, okay, so this is data. What do I do with data? I interpret it. I decide what I'm going to do with this data,
Hmm.
and it takes a lot of practice, but when we can do that, it really flips the switch and it makes even harshly critical feedback a whole lot more interesting. Like, is there some thread of truth in that harshly critical
Hmm.
feedback that I can learn something from?
Mm.
If it's
Yeah.
data, like because data is objective. So if we can just treat it like objective data and then decide how to
And
respond.
decide. Okay.
Take a deep breath. My
Yeah.
my biggest thing, like I feel it, over the years,
Yeah.
I know I'm going to feel it right here first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right here first before
Mm.
anything comes out of my mouth or anything, I'm going to feel it right here. And then I go, you know, not
Yeah.
a big like, but just a quiet, deep breath is enough to go, okay,
Understood.
this is data. This is data. Just get
Mm.
curious. What do I do with this data? It's
Mm.
not easy and it is a practice, but feedback is super valuable. It's really funny. I have this one little video that I don't know why, but for some reason LinkedIn's version of viral, it kind of went viral and it keeps
Okay.
coming back to life. And
Okay.
like thousands and thousands and thousands, thousands, thousands of hits. And there's like of all of these people that have looked at it and hundreds that have probably more than hundreds at this point that have liked it. There's 10 comments, and three of those comments are so harsh and so negative. Exactly what you're talking about. The whole video is just about communicating with your people, staying in touch with your people and recognizing it if somebody feels off and touch and
Hmm.
base. Is there something you need? Anything? And man, the harsh ones, it took so much emotional and self-regulation to not respond back, to not, and it was actually obvious they didn't actually even listen to the video. Because if they had actually listened to it,
Yeah.
that's not what it was about. The thing they were being so harsh
Oh,
and
wow.
judgmental about, but it was so hard. And my digital media manager, she's like, "You've got to respond to these," and I was like, "No, I don't." She's like, "Karen, you need to respond to these because this is just wrong." And like she was so upset, about it. And I said,
Yeah.
"It's fine. You know what? It's
Yep.
it's fine. It's not about me, it's about them. And I don't need to respond to it.
Yeah.
So
Those are great tips because you're right. It does take work to not internalize this, to not respond, to not take it personally, and it's just a reality. You just got to work at it. You're just not going to be,
and now more
wake up
than
and be great at
ever,
it. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Now
Now more than ever. Yes.
now more than ever because our world, we're so brave. We're so brave when we're not communicating face to face.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
brazen. And
Yeah.
so,
It's
when we don't have to actually share air, we're not sharing air, but I'm looking at you, I can see
yeah.
your body language, I can see how you're
Yeah.
receiving information. And when it's not really anonymous, but when it feels like I'm just free to do this and this is how I
Yeah.
think right now,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like such a weird, weird time.
Yeah. Because it dehumanizes the other person, right?
Yeah, it's easy to not remember that that's actually a human. It's a real person that's a mother, daughter, father, son, uncle, friend, leader, team member, all of
Yeah.
those things. And
Yep.
we are all of those things. And we bring them with
Absolutely.
us everywhere we go. And this is off topic, but it's on my mind. So I'm just going to say it. You're going to shut me down.
Go ahead.
So, you know how you hear leave your personal life at home?
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah. How do you do that?
Who does that? It sounds really good that we're at
Right.
work now. So, but if you've got something huge going on in your
Yep.
personal life, you can compartmentalize here and there, but on the whole of a 8 or 10 hour day with other humans, it's going to impact you.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so as leaders, we just have to know that that's going to happen, right? It's going to happen to us. It's going to happen to our team members. And in a way, I think this circles all the way back to communication and being vulnerable.
Yep.
So when you
Yep.
see a team member who's off, who's different, ask why. Maybe they don't want to share it with you, and that's okay. But let them know that you see them.
Absolutely. And that builds trust, right?
Yeah,
You care
everybody
about
needs to
me. I know you
be
care about me.
valued, respected, and feel trusted, you know?
Yes.
And the way we value and respect people is to be dialed in.
Yep. Yep.
You can't do it by touching base once every 90 days
No.
or
Not at
less,
all. Or
you know?
yep.
Yeah.
Takes effort and makes such a difference though. It's a great
This
point.
leadership stuff, man, it's hard. It takes a lot of work, and it's
Yeah.
completely different from being an expert in your field. Being an
Right.
expert leader is not the same thing as being an expert in
Yep.
whatever kind of work is done
Yeah.
at your workplace. It's a
Yep.
different skill set.
It is. It is. And it's one that matters a lot, as we've discussed here. And
What'd you say? Everything rises and
yep,
falls on leadership. Yeah.
everything rises and falls. And as we wrap here, because we've got through about half of our list of pitfalls,
Maybe, yeah.
but
Loosely in a, yeah.
yeah, they're all intertwined, but such great insight. Yeah, but it reminds me of what we discussed before we started recording, and that was, like I told you, I often say leadership. It's not about you. I mean, when you're a leader, leadership is about the organization, the team you lead, the people, the vision, the goals you're after. It's not about you. Many leaders make it about them.
Mhm.
Um, so leadership is not about you, but it starts with you. And
Starts with you.
it's the leader saying, "Hey, I'm gonna look at myself. I'm gonna see where I can get better. Where am I deficient? Where am I not building trust? Where am I not communicating well? Where am I not receiving feedback? Where am I not handling uh, criticism well? Where am I showing up thinking I have all the answers? But it takes holding up the mirror, and many leaders have a hard time doing that because they've probably been conditioned to think again, they have to have it all together. I'm
Yeah,
the leader. And so I just think if more leaders would start there, our organizations, our communities, our businesses, they would, our churches, name your organization that's led by someone, they would be better if every leader started there, in my opinion.
I agree with you. It can be very, very, very uncomfortable to
Mm,
honestly hold up the
mm,
mirror.
very.
It's a lot easier to just keep your head down and
Yep.
trudge
Yep.
trudge through and just
Yep. Do the
do
work and
yeah, do what
yeah.
whatever historically you've thought you should do, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
so true.
Well, as we wrap up, any final thoughts? Any small steps, tips that you say for a leader? Hey, I know I got to get better in something, and then we've rattled off a lot of things, but where do leaders start, in your opinion?
It sounds like a bunch of old cliches, but walk the talk. And when I say walk the talk, what are the values of your organization? What do
Mhm.
you hold other people accountable to? What do you expect from them from the way of behavior, performance, communication, all of these things we've talked about?
Mhm.
Do that. Hold yourself to, at a minimum, the same standard that you're holding other people to, you know? But if you've got stated values, what does it look like when they're being followed? Do that.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
Number one, do what you say you will do when you say you will do it. You know, Things come up, we have to cancel meetings. The sooner you communicate a change like that, you can keep trust as long as you're not doing it every single time you have a meeting. But if on some occasion you have to cancel a meeting because of unforeseen things, give notice as soon as you can and get it rescheduled, and then show up the next time you get it
Right.
rescheduled, right? So
Yeah.
do what you say you're going to do when you're going to say you're going to do it with the quality that you say you're going to give, you
Mm.
know? as a minimum standard, you know?
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
that goes such a long way because if you think about do what you say you'll do, that's huge. That's not just I'll get back to you Tuesday.
Right.
That's part of it. If you say I'll get back to you Tuesday, get back to me Tuesday. I may have forgotten, but when you get back to me Tuesday, I'm going to remember that you said you were going to get back to me Tuesday.
Yeah.
All of those things. But it's also do what you say you're going to do is when you stand up at your big town hall meeting and put forth your goals and your priorities, stick to them, adhere to them, demonstrate that these really are the goals and the priorities and the expectations and the values. So do what you say you'll do when you say you'll do it with the big things and the small things.
Mm,
And that, if you do just that, that goes such a long way. And
great place to
and
start.
think about in just Jeremy, think about in your life, how
Hmm.
many people truly consistently, and if you would give them a high A rating on doing
Yeah.
what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it with the accuracy and proficiency that they say they will. What percentage of people do that?
Mm. I'll have to think about that one. It's probably lower than I would like it to be, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think
Yeah.
it's,
So I would say do that.
yeah, yeah, I
Live your
think,
values.
yeah,
Be
live
that
it
person.
out. Yep. Build that trust by following through and being a person that people can count on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't gossip.
So,
Don't get into the mix.
yeah.
Treat people with respect, whether they're in the room or not in the room.
Mm, hmm, yes.
You
Be a
know,
person that people want to follow, right?
absolutely. When a decision is made, support it,
Hmm.
you know,
Yep. Yep.
all so many things,
Great tips. And
so many things.
I know
But in
you
a
have many.
nutshell, do your
Yeah.
homework. Continue to grow your emotional intelligence because
Yes.
it is truly 90% of a leader's proficiency
Yeah.
and success hinges on his ability to know his own emotions, regulate his own emotions, read the room and understand what's going on with the people around them, and manage the relationships. We've got relationships up, down, sideways, around. It's up to
Yeah.
me to take the lead on managing those relationships.
Yep. That's it. Start with yourself. Well, I know we're out of time. Where where can people find you? I know you mentioned videos, so I know you do a lot on LinkedIn. You've got perspectivesllc.com, your website where I know you have resources, blog, etc. But where do you prefer people to connect with you?
Yeah, so definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. Um, you can email me if you want to start up a chat. You can find me. I'll take your email at Karen@perspectivesllc.com. You can get us through the website if you want to learn more, perspectivesllc.com. I'm on Instagram and YouTube under Perspectives LLC as well. But
Great.
LinkedIn, I think
Yeah.
that's where the business is happening, not on
Yeah.
Instagram for me. I don't sell
Right.
widgets or makeup, so.
Well, you've definitely put a lot of content out there, and so I encourage people to go visit your page and connect with you and hear what you have to say. And I know you're providing a lot of these insights to leaders and teams on a regular basis just to help them grow and get better. So thank you for investing in us today and sharing your expertise. And we'll have to continue the conversation and get through our list at some point. But
I
we've
would
covered
love
so
that. We're gonna
much.
have
We
to do a
covered so much.
series over the next few months
We
somehow, where
might
we dive a deeper dive
deeper
into.
dive.
But thank you,
Yes.
Jeremy, so much for
Yes.
for bringing me to be with you today. And you're always a joy, so I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Likewise. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Peace.